Thank you for staying with us. Well, concerns over the outbreak of cholera in Nigeria is what we're talking about next. And so far, something in the region of 21 deaths have been recorded. With us this morning is the General Manager, Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA, Dr. Babatunde Ajayi. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Well, perhaps let's begin with the basics. What are the basic things that people need to understand about this outbreak?
Oh, well, I'd say that, first of all, most of these outbreaks are environmental. They have environmental causes, they're environmental issues, right? And it is purely around sanitation, basic sanitation, access and usage of clean water, and how they can keep their hygiene intact, really. So it's a lot of, personally looking out for water, clean water, good hygiene, and good sanitation around you.
Why is that some kind of elusive idea?
It's not elusive. I think that, all through the fabric of education and even society, everybody has a rough idea of what is right and what should be done. However, sometimes people drop the ball, and then, people just get very careless along the line. There are also issues around taking personal responsibility for your own health and, sanitation, which is where one person's carelessness now leads to multiple infections, and sometimes it could spiral out of one's grip.
The understanding and what we have on the screen for a number of people now is to even recognize the symptoms and the things to prevent and all of that. Are these things coming to people strangely for the first time? I saw some of the videos that your team went out to make in certain areas, like in one of those areas is Koshope. Please tell us about it and what are the findings?
So what had happened, also at the beginning of the outbreak, what we had thought was to identify the clusters that were most affected. So we had Mushin, we had Lagos Island, we had Koshope. And we thought to, at the very least, assess the issues, the environmental issues, take samples, run the samples and see what it would look like. We have an ISO certified laboratory, which we then used to analyze the samples. So we went around and we found that some of the water facilities that these people had, in their homes, in their places, did not quite comply with expected standards. For instance, we had places where the borehole was sunk about 2 feet away from the sewage treatment plant or sewage, what we call secondary pit, right? And of course, clearly there will be seepage of that sewage into the borehole, the water from the borehole. Interestingly, that water point serves that community. That's where they sell water to that community from. So we're taking a sample from there to analyze and see. A couple of things have come out of that. So we then thought to double up on this activity and then make sure, in partnership with the Environmental Health Department, make sure that these things are checked early enough and people know what to do in terms of water and sanitation.
Available information says that the outbreak, as of June 19, 417 suspected cholera cases have been recorded, 35 confirmed cases, and 24 deaths have been recorded in Lagos alone. That's the image right there, for many people to see. And last week it wasn't up to 24. The last we heard was it was 21, and now we have, this. From understanding, available information also tells us, even from this morning, when Dr. Roberts was on our previous program, one of the things that she made clear to us, look, the high point, it's an annual cycle. Cholera is an annual cycle. It's not something that just springs on us. It is something that happens every year, and that the peak is between July and August. It will seem like being in June right now, we're just growing. Are we to expect worse? How do we ensure that these things don't happen again?
I think the synchrony or the cycle there has something to do with the rain season, the rainfall season. So once the rain starts, all of the small areas of hygiene gaps, right, are then exposed. So people who didn't use proper toilets and who did their thing in public drains now have, rainwater washing it to, other people. And then that is a problem. So that then can infect people. So it's around the cycle of, the rainy season. And I think that with the work rates we have now, I'm sure that we are able to contain it and we won't have that stretch up until August this time. Because the Ministry of Environment is clearly on it. We're doing water to these communities. We're doing hard advocacy on how to sanitize their water or how to purify their water before use. We're taking the gospel right into their homes. So I think that we won't get as much impact in terms of caseload now.
Well, to anyone who values life, the caseload is significant enough at this point. And perhaps part of the issues here is the preventive as opposed to the curative medicine that we tend to be practicing now. Back in the day, and we've referenced it quite a number of times here, that rather than focus on the curative, we can focus on the preventive medicine, as we had done in previous years when sanitation officers went from the local government areas into the homes of people to say, guys, this is happening. In fact, I remember clearly, it were the days of water ports. If your water port had anything that moved inside of it, that water port was broken. You were mandated to go get another one. I think people now began from there to even move away from the water ports. When they began to use plastics, if the sanitation officers went into your house and they saw that the water had any kind of color, they broke that thing and you just had to find a way to fix it. We don't seem to have that anymore.
So I think that a few things have moved around in terms of what you expect and call change. Number one, there's a huge population explosion already, right? And then we still have sanitation officers. They're still going around. We still do a lot of door-to-door, house-to-house campaigns. I mean, particularly within this cholera period, and even with styrofoam.
Are you talking about officers of LASEPA or local government officials?
No, I'm taking it now to local government officials, the environmental health officers, and they're under the Ministry of Environment, and they also do all of this advocacy. So advocacy is sort of a shared responsibility. The Lagos Wastewater Management Office is also doing advocacy on hygiene and sanitation, right? LASEPA is doing advocacy. Environmental health officers are going from door to door. It is currently happening. It may not be as intense as it used to be. I mean, because of the volume of people that now, have to be reached. I mean, you don't have huge clusters of people, and going house to house will be some sort of, a hard task. But I know that, we have moved into community since 10th of June, and we have done a lot of advocacy, hard advocacy in that respect, particularly on cholera. Also, these things around what used to happen were also days when we had strong enforcement and we had a strong grip of the behavior the environmental behavioral patterns of people. Now we're trying to get that grip back, right? With the leadership of Honorable Tokunbo Wahab, who is the Commissioner for Environment, we're able to now, speak with one hard voice to say, you know what, you cannot be this lax anymore in Lagos. You cannot be this careless with your hygiene anymore in Lagos. You cannot be this careless with your sanitation anymore in Lagos, right? And that's the advocacy we are pushing out. We're making sure that it is getting to the nooks and crannies. And the very good days are coming back. Okay,
let's hope that, because one of the videos that I saw that your people, went to put out was that a particular, water reservoir is naturally black in color, had turned brown. And people were taking water from that to drink and to sell. And I also saw in one of those efforts that your people went to make that they took whatever it was, white, and scraped through a pipe. And guess what? It came out brown. And people were taking water from there to sell, to cook food, to drink, and all of that. So I'm wondering how far back this goes and how long will it take to catch up, because this is just one example. There are 20 local government and 57 LCDAs in all in Lagos State. So one is wondering, how long is it going to take?
So I think that the essence of showcasing some of the work we do It's so that the message can travel faster, and people can see that the gallon or the reservoir you're using has to be taken care of and cleaned from time to time. The message behind that clip was to make sure that you ask the guy selling water to you to clean his gallon from time to time. I mean, the fact that people now know that those gallons are very dirty, you know, there will be that need, they would have that nudge to ask them, when last did you wash this gallon? You know, apart from going from house to house, you're also passing that message, you know, across the waves. So I can tell that now people have begun to check. People have started asking what their water pipes look like. If you open those gallons, a lot of them have algae. Some of us don't even wash our water tanks at home. If you open the water tanks of some houses, it's as dark and as green as you can imagine.
Okay.
So what we're saying is your water tank has to be washed at the very least twice a year. You need to clean out your water system because it can harbor infections. You know, it can be the access that you would have to all of these infections. There are many people who even live around wetlands, you know, and all of those bushes.
Those are huge conversations to have. Well, while we're talking about local government here, there's another angle to it somewhere else. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. Your correspondent Charles Oporom is in Rivers State, Port Harcourt. So there's some protest there. He's in the thick of things. So his station is just moving all over the place, and it's an active scenario. So let's get to him and see if we could just get him on the line to talk to us about what you see right now. Good morning, Charles. Yeah, we already see images of protesters marching from one end to the other. Could you situate that for us now? What's going on?
Good morning, Chamberlain. Yes, I am live here in Buguma, council headquarters of Asari Toru local government area of Rivers State. As early as 8 a.m., the crowd started collecting somewhere in Buguma opposite one of their grammar schools, led by the former chairman, the one whose tenure just expired last week, Onengiofori George. Initially, we thought, I thought it was going to be like a press briefing or something of that nature. But then when we got here, we saw crowds collecting from the different wards of the local government, and they started waving placards, chanting, singing, and some of the inscription on the placards include the ones I could read. They were asking the Inspector General of Police to continue to order his men to occupy the council headquarters. Some of the inscriptions read like, Seminar life, you cannot continue to behave anyhow and go scot-free. And there is no vacancy in Asari Toru local government, you know, among others. So it looks like it's a protest put together, mobilized by the immediate past council chairman, because it's happening across 21 out of the 23 local government areas in the state. We've walked from one end of the town to the other. We understand the former chairman told me that they would be presenting a letter to the IG through the DPO. And then, of course, when they present that letter, they want to ask the police to continue to occupy.
Okay, but Charles, are any one of them in sight? Have you seen any one of them? The former council chairman.
Say again.
Have you seen any one of the former council chairman?
Oh, yes. I was just with Onengiofori George. You know, he's the one leading the protest, so I couldn't really pull him aside to have this conversation. But he's the one leading the protest. He was here, and indeed, he's at the forefront. His people, his supporters are chanting and singing alongside him. And it's not just here. My other colleague is somewhere else in Akukutoru, and it's the same thing. You know, I understand that the former chairman had a meeting last night where they agreed to take on this protest. And this is coming despite an advisory from the Rivers State Police Command against holding protests today. Chamberlain.
Well, Charles, can you also bring us up to speed? Because we understand there was a statement by the commander of, beg your pardon, the CP in Rivers State, now released by the PRO in Rivers, saying that, you know, people should not protest today, that the protest had every risk of being infiltrated. It doesn't appear that that warning was heeded, was it?
Yes, Mark, but you are correct. The statement was released and signed yesterday by SP Grace Iringe Koko, the spokesperson of the Rivers State Police Command. And a part of that statement read, while we recognize the rights of Nigerians to peaceful protest, we advise against protesting at this time. Now, the idea, of course, was that the police, by their intelligence, thought or believed that the protest, if they went on, was going to be infiltrated by faith columnists, and it could lead to a breakdown of law and order. Remember, yesterday, the former chairman held a press briefing where they raised an alarm about a protest, another protest, which was supposed to have held today by NOLGI, the members of NOLGI, that's the local government employees, their union, the organized labor, NLC, CUC, and some civil society organizations. When they raised alarm about that, barely 2 hours later, organized labor came out, did their own press briefing, where they asked their members not to protest today. But interestingly, there was a third press briefing yesterday by the caretaker committee chairman as appointed by the governor, and there was a counter accusation yesterday by the CTC chairman, accusing the former chairman of masterminding a protest for today. Apparently, it looks like that was the case because it's happening right now. Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Charles. Thank you for your report, and please stay safe out there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ayo, back now to you.
Well, thank you, Malkwe and Chamberlain. Well, from one local government issue to another, I mean, it's interestingly from the records available, even from the NCDC, Rivers State is not one of those states in the country with any case of cholera as of 7 days ago. Whether there are updates or not, I guess we'll wait to see while that crisis is ongoing and hoping for peace across board. Back to you now, Dr. Ajayi. So the issues are there. And now we are talking about whether or not the local government administrators have the authority or the permission or the enablement to do the things that they are supposed to do. Why is that an issue?
I don't think it's an issue. I think that they do have the enablement. I think they're able to also contain whatever they find. So the response to this outbreak is collaborative. We have activity from local government. We have activity from the state government. As a matter of fact, the reporting we have is coordinated by the local government reporting officers.
The challenge, the issue I'm raising is because of something that you said earlier, that over the years it would seem like we neglected to do a number of these things. Otherwise, I don't think a black tank, water tank, would turn brown, and the pipes themselves would turn brown. I don't think that if the surveillance was as significant as you're saying, that anyone will be going around with cart pushers will be going around with clearly dirty, filthy looking. It's part of the efforts that your team went to see with the videos that we saw. Very, very dirty looking, water kegs, and people get to sell such water to other people. The people opened the tank and scraped the inside and brought out brown, and they went and tested the water. I saw the video. So if this was as statewide as you're saying, and the local government officers were able to do the things that they were supposed to do, I don't know if your people will still have to do all of that.
So I think clearly there's a gap, and there's a bit of strengthening that has to be done, in terms of making sure that people take their own hygiene and sanitation as seriously as possible. The role of personal responsibility in cholera outbreaks and epidemics like this cannot be understated. I also think that on the local government side, the health and the environmental leg need to, sort of work more together, and then make sure that there's proper enforcement, whenever they find these kinds of things. It's also not one of those things that you will ordinarily check on, unless there are issues like this. But going forward, I know that we have now put structures in place to make sure that at every point in time, people are checking. Both local government officials, state government officials, from time to time, will move in and check what people are doing. We would also continue advocacy. I think that the best way to create change is to continuously talk about it and then insist that people do the right thing, which is what we're doing.
Now, Lagos is the smallest state in Nigeria geographically, but it is not a distance to be walked easily by any human being.
Sure.
We're right here now talking around here, Badagry is quite a length of space from here. Ekpe is quite a length of space from him. Even Ikorodu, the closest of the long distances, is quite a length of space from here. So I'm wondering how you think the information will be getting to the people. Definitely, the people have their own responsibilities. We'll come to that in a minute. But it's because people are not being as responsible as they should be that we even have a system that tells them and ensures that they do the needful. So what's the plan to get all of this information across the far and wide distances of the city?
So the advocacy plan is very detailed. It is a very robust plan. I'll start with the media information side of things, right? So all of the agencies under the Ministry of Environment are all out now doing advocacy. That's why I'm here. LASEPA has done a few clips, that is circulating on radio. A few of us are speaking on radio. A few people are on television. People are on the grassroots level now, speaking from house to house. The environmental health officers are moving from house to house, engaging people and letting them know. Now, for us, the sustainability and the continuity of this kind of activity is where the hard work is, So you have to continuously talk about it and continuously drive it into their minds, even when the epidemic is over. And that is how you sustain, good health. That is how you sustain a good environment. So beyond that, we're moving to schools at some point. There's a partnership now between health, environment, and school. The One Health space. Outbreak is also involved. In all of the places where we can establish vulnerability, we're beginning to move in to talk to them. And it is not just one person talking, it is everybody coming to the table. Everybody is saying something. Yesterday, even after we had done a lot of rounds around Lagos on drainage services and things in the morning, the commissioner still mentioned it, that, cholera has something to do with how clear these drainages are, how water is able to flow, during the rain. So everybody's talking about it. So because we're talking about it and we're also moving the message down to the grassroots, the local government is also talking about it. The MOHs in each of the primary healthcare districts are also talking about it. We're making sure that we inform people as much as possible. So we hope that all of these efforts will culminate into people taking responsibility for these spaces. We would also be needing a lot of enforcement around the cleanliness and hygiene of people and, their practices in terms of access to clean water. For the areas affected, for instance, we have rolled out water tanks to those areas while we cordon them off. The infected water spots, cordon them off. We did a lot of sanitization and chlorination, and we have supplied water to those local governments through the Lagos State Water Corporation. So all of us are working together to make sure that we surmount this epidemic and also sustain the message over time.
Now, this disease is largely communicated through water. Now, we had, at some point in our lives in the city, Lagos State Water Corporation that supplied water to almost every, if not every part of the city. But it will seem like it's a different story now. One of the videos, put out right there is of people building water holes right beside, sewage tanks, right beside burial spaces in their homes. And we know that some of these things have been outlawed. So do these enforcements come with any kind of penalty to the people?
Yes. So environmental infractions generally come with penalties, and these penalties can range from small fines to community service and to very small, detention issues. And I think that we have environmental courts that are actively on these things. So whenever we find these things that are clearly not legal and not hygienic, we make sure that the people who are committing infractions are, held to responsibility.
And my apologies, are these penalties or are they stiff enough to be significant deterrents?
Yes, they are. If you drop your refuse indiscriminately and you are caught, for instance, you will probably do at the very minimum 6 hours of community service. If you are detained for 6 hours and you are made to cut grass in a very large compound, you don't want to go back to that experience. It's an environmental infraction. You don't want to go back to that experience. And you'll be made to do this thing, with the cameras. So you'll be made an example to other people, So you will be an example of what a responsible person should not be. Of course, if people are watching, then you will not do it again. So I think that they are stiff enough for environmental offenses. And, we continue to make sure that people are held responsible whenever it is they commit these infractions.
Now, let's quickly talk about the responsibility of the people. Okay. How do we get that into our lifestyles? Because it's not just about offenses, it's about lifestyle of the people. What's missing?
So the lifestyle is very closely related to what people know, what they are aware of, and what they don't take for granted. And I think that someone is said to be responsible when they do something consistently when no one is watching. The reason you're drinking clean water should not be because someone is watching you whether you drink it or not. The reason you're dumping your refuse appropriately or disposing your refuse appropriately it should not be because Loma is watching. It should not be because someone is trying to make you do the right thing. It should be a personal responsibility. So I think we will get to that point where people have to take personal responsibility. And I think that the precedents, in the past few months, would have shown clearly that if you don't take personal responsibility, by the time the long arm of the law comes, it will take its course, and you will be made to pay for it.
Well, we have to thank you very much for coming here this morning. I'm hoping that we'll have further conversations about this, because this is just one, and there are a number of others from information available from the NCDC. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Babatunde Ajayi is the General Manager, Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA. Thank you again for your time. Okay, Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed, guys. We also have to thank you all. So we're keeping tabs on what's going on in Katsina, in Rivers, and Kano, as a matter of fact. But we'll bring you all of those. Just keep it locked here at Channels. Well, that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Osop. Goodbye.
Well, while you keep it warm today, also keep it sterile. Make sure that you're not spreading infection anywhere you go. Thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
And please do pass the information on. Several other people who may not have watched this program need the information you have gotten. Amaya Makinde, do have a wonderful and productive week.